These X-rays of the stomach were taken with the hospital's previous CAT scanner, used during the last 10 years to photograph internal parts of the body. But now this is what's possible with the latest technology. The pictures are clearer, with even the smallest vein noticeable. But not only has the new machine made diagnosis easier, it's also more comfortable for the patient. Photographs of the abdomen used to take up to an hour. They now take less than 20 minutes. But possibly the most amazing feature of the machine is the 3D images it produces. Never before has the human skull been recreated with such accurate detail. The black spots around the eye area show broken bones, and running down the front of the forehead are multiple fractures.
Suppose you have somebody with massive facial injuries which needs reconstructions. The surgeon's got to know what the face is like in a 3 dimension, you see. I mean, they have to know what bits have gone in, what's got to come out, etc. So that's of tremendous use to the facial injury team.
The Toshiba CT scanner is the first of its kind in the state. The only other hospital in line to get one is the new John Hunter at Rankin Park. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
The Snowball collection portrays a unique slice of life from the 1880s and early 1900s. Newcastle historian Norm Barney was inspired to assemble the pictures in a book following the overwhelming response to an exhibition at the Regional Library entitled Caught in Time.
We had so many people asking for the photographs that I decided I'd put a book together for them. And there are about half the photographs in the book are from this exhibition. And the other half are actually photographs that haven't been seen before.
The photographs capture the spirit of hunter minds, family picnics and special events in the region's history. But more interesting are the images of normal people going about their daily lives. Bygone Days will be on sale this week.
Months ago, the car and wagon repair facility at Newcastle's Civic was closed and operations moved to a temporary building at Port Waratah. Today, Freight Rail unveiled plans to build a $6.5 million one-spot maintenance facility in the region.
There'll be about 2,000 wagons that are effectively captive to this northern region, and on top of that there's probably another 1,000 or so wagons that go through the Newcastle area as part of our interstate business.
Where it once took 66 men to service 25 wagons a day, it now takes a third of that number for the same workload. The new facility will greatly increase productivity, with all work carried out under the one roof.
Bogies are done at bogie workshops, and certain heavier repairs are done at other workshops, while basic maintenance is done at depots. We're trying to really bring those all together and undertake that kind of maintenance at a one-spot shop.
Keeping coal, wheat and steel moving is a competitive business, and Freight Rail has had to adjust to survive. A helicopter is now used to take men and equipment to train breakdowns in remote parts of the valley.
We can't bring the train back and the wagon back for repairs. We send out a helicopter service on the spot and undertake the repair there and then. And this has the least impact on our train operations.
Although no definite decision has been made, the repair depot looks like being built at either Port Waratah or Kooragang and should be operating within 18 months. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
Joe's ship caught statewide attention with details of widespread insurance scams in Newcastle. The Housing Minister told a news conference that a special police task force will investigate around 600 cases of overclaiming on earthquake building work. The GIO was named as one company which fell prey to the racket. But some feel the Minister may have spoken out of turn.
Well, I don't think anybody should comment on police investigations while they're underway.
Member for Newcastle George Keegan called the announcement premature. Police weren't ready for that sort of exposure. A GIO spokesman said the company would not normally make a public announcement until the police investigation was complete. He said it could prejudice some of the police operations. Unofficially, some police officers have echoed those sentiments. The task force operation, codenamed Choke, began operations discreetly at Newcastle's GIO headquarters last Monday, but their cover was blown with the Housing Minister's announcement. Today, police said it would be inappropriate for members of the task force to speak to NBN. The Executive Director of the Master Builders Association, Norm Steep, is outspoken in criticising the Minister's timing. He says Mr Shipp sidetracked public attention from an important report on earthquake repairs tabled in Parliament yesterday. Do you think the Minister would disapprove of the comments you've made today?
I wouldn't be concerned about that. I just feel that we should have had a report on the inquiry that didn't cloud the issue with other remarks.
The report commissioned by the Minister concludes there's uncertainty over who is responsible for latent and recurring building defects, which will inevitably surface with further ground settlement. Homeowners most at risk are those who used an unlicensed builder, as they'll have no rights to compensation under the Building Services Corporation scheme. The report calls for guidelines which set out the responsibilities of local government, the Insurance Council and the Building Services Corporation. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
A growing stockpile of steel at the Port Waratah plant is visual testament to the economic crisis within the domestic market.
Our market is down, and that means that our profitability is halved in the last 6 months, and in some months we're break even in profitability. We're exporting a lot of steel and holding operations together.
New rosters, a reorganisation of shifts plus a change in overtime levels has resulted in several strikes over the past 2 weeks. Around 30 workers have been transferred to form an extra shift in export steel. Mr Chenery said the strikes are damaging an already struggling business. Job security is guaranteed for only another 2 years under the Steel Industry Development Agreement.
Ultimately, the only guarantee is that this business is internationally competitive and we are profitable. That is the only guarantee, ultimately.
The domestic market has dropped by 22%, and though exports have quadrupled, high freight rates are cutting into the profit margin. Profit figures will be released on the 19th of next month, and the forecast is not good.
I would expect that the steel profit to be down and well down, and instead of being the number one profit earner as it's been for 2 years, it'll be a sad last.
The Department of Education says there was never any doubt that another school would be built at the junction. The site of the old school has been completely levelled in preparation for the job. Demolition of the old building began last month after interest groups agreed that the historic building was too dangerous to ever again be used as a classroom. Even demolition proved fraught with hazard. One man died when he was struck by fragments of a disintegrating wall. The new school will look very different. About 350 students and their teachers will share 10 classrooms, a library, tiered learning spaces and an administration block. The Department of Education has insisted that the design meets new earthquake specifications.
The alluvial soil's been taken away and very strong road base has been worked into the ground, and then the building itself will be on concrete slab which will float if there is any further earthquake, and the building itself is only single storey. All the buildings are single storey.
The construction tender is for $2.4 million, but site preparation and ongoing supervision will add another $1 million to the total bill. Work is expected to start soon and be completed in time for the 1992 school year.
September is the month of grand finals, and Warners Bay proved to be worthy champions of the Newcastle Australian Football League with a good win over Nelson Bay. And what a classic in men's hockey between West and the favourite Norths. After full time and 2 periods of extra time, West finally sealed the win in a penalty shootout. Mayfield East and Hamilton battled the elements in a Dower Rugby Union grand final, and it will be recorded that the two teams are joint premiers after a 6-all draw. Another classic confrontation was the Northern Soccer Federation grand final between Western and Adamstown. And yes, folks, it was another penalty shootout, and for the 4th year in a row, Adamstown were runners-up. The Wickham Stadium hosted the Australian Badminton Championships, and Victoria just pipped the home state in a magnificent teams event, and the following week the singles were played before big crowds. Ben Bright from the Gold Coast at 16 years of age streeted his rivals to win the Lake Macquarie Triathlon, and Michaeli Jones won the women's section. Believe it or not, the Falcons ran hot in their last couple of games, beating the eventual NBL champions Perth, and then the Illawarra Hawks in Newcastle. Young Killiban Bay motorcyclist Todd Wilshire turned in a stunning performance to run third in the World Solo Speedway title against the best in the business. And Guy Waters put Dave Fiddler's lights out. But the crowning glory for Newcastle sports lovers in September was the naming of Mark Sargent in the Kangaroo Tour team, and hasn't he taken all before him in the old dart? Sport continued in October, where Peter Morris named the Lake Macquarie Sports Star of the Year. Veteran athlete Ray Williams from Stockton won an amazing 19 gold medals at the Central Australian Masters Games. Newcastle murdered the ACT in the first representative cricket match of the year. Carolyn Pawley won the Newcastle Women's Golf title at the Steelworks Club, and the Commonwealth Cycle Classic came to town. The Newcastle Under-14 boys basketball team won the Australian Championship, and international squash was at Charlestown in a lead-up to the World Titles in Sydney. And there was plenty of petrol pumpers at King Edward Park for the Matara Hill Climb. The final function of the year for the Knights saw a diminutive halfback named Player of the Year. November has been relatively quiet, but a crowning achievement for the Newcastle Hockey Association, the opening of the magnificent international hockey fields at District Park. To celebrate, Australia thrashed England 6-1. November's big on surf, and Merewether was declared the champion club of the nation for the 4th year in a row when they turned in an awesome display to win the Quicksilver Surf League. And to wrap up our look at 1990 in the Hunter Valley, action from Surfest this week in some of the biggest waves seen at Newcastle.
The fire started under the floor of the small library block at the Pius X Primary School at about midnight. Local brigades contained the blaze, but heat and smoke damage to the interior and 4,500 books is extensive. Police inquiries are continuing.
A big jump in land valuations has caused headaches for Lake Macquarie Council in setting next year's rates. Waterfront properties have experienced huge increases in value, and if that was reflected proportionately in the rates, many people feared they couldn't afford to stay in their homes. Last night's council meeting before a packed public gallery endorsed a new approach. More than 15,000 residents will now pay a minimum rate of $300 plus a flat $70 across-the-board charge for garbage service. Land valued above about $30,000 will pay at a rate at 0.935 cents in the dollar. That's down on this year's rate of 2.58 cents in the dollar. By increasing the minimum charge and decreasing the general rate, Council argues the burden is shared evenly among ratepayers.
But those people, at least on the minimum rate, really are not bearing their share of the burden of running this city.
ALP aldermen wanted to retain the existing rating structure and voted against the new garbage service fee. The Lake Macquarie Ratepayers Action Group remains disappointed.
Well, I believe that the council has continued on their approach of adopting soft options. Our committee has continually been promoting the use of a differential rate within the residential rate. Council refuses to consider that, and the way things are going at the moment, it does not appear that it will be an alternative for them.
The new system means an increase for about 12,000 ratepayers, but a decrease for others, particularly those in higher valued properties. The Minister for Local Government, David Hay, is unlikely to oppose the rate system. They should be formally adopted by December the 17th. John Church, NBN News.
The majority of Newcastle's 700 tax office employees will be involved in the bans. Level 1, 2 and 3 administrative services officers claim the only way they can win a pay rise is by applying for another job with the public service and not by learning new skills.
We want tax to fund the accelerated advancement for members, the ASO 1, 2 and 3 positions. We've had problems negotiating with them to get agreement on the submission put to them, and with the implementations of bans on a national basis, hopefully we'll be able to achieve an outcome.
The meeting at the Newcastle Workers Club voted 164 to 6 to implement bans on computer input.
Which basically means anybody running a bit behind with their tax return will find that they will not be getting it as quickly now because it's limited to 2 hours a day input into the computer.
The bans will come into force immediately following national endorsement this afternoon.
Do you have any idea how long they'll last?
As long as it takes to get a satisfactory outcome.
At first glance, it looks like these buildings are here to stay, but the apparently solid brick exterior is deceptive. Each brick substation is designed to be transportable. Early tomorrow, a low loader will leave for Melbourne carrying this 24-tonne cargo. Railick Engineering has designed and manufactured 8 substations for the Victorian transport system. Its brief was to build a unit which conforms to stringent environmental regulations imposed by local government. The company found that a lightweight, flexible brick cladding system was the way to meet the council's demands.
The reason for the brick is that it's going into suburban Melbourne where there are hundreds of brick houses, and the local council where these substations are going insisted that they blend in, and the Melbourne Transport Corporation asked if we could do something about it.
The substations will supply 600 volts direct current to the overhead lines in Melbourne's tram network. Another 7 units are at various stages of completion and will eventually join this substation in powering the Victorian transport system. Also underway, work on a $1 million contract to supply high-voltage electrical equipment for Australia's largest dragline at a Queensland open-cut coal mine.
Underground mines are dark and noisy places, with tight undulating roadways and blind corners. Moving machinery in these conditions is dangerous, with operators working under poor visibility. The death of a coal miner in 1986 prompted research into a special warning device to alert operators of the approach of continuous mining machines and shuttle cars. The CSIRO came up with a system using radio and ultrasound waves to measure the distance between approaching vehicles. An alarm sounds when the machines are between 5 to 10 metres apart. The high-tech system costs about $20,000 to fit out a complete mining unit. That's 1 continuous miner and 2 shuttle cars. The receivers are fitted to the front body, designed to withstand harsh working conditions. 4 months of trials at Myuna Colliery at Wangi have proved extremely successful. There are now plans to test the system's application at open-cut mines and even at airports. John Church, NBN News.
This morning's performance started with a Spanish flavour. Infants and primary students were treated to the dazzle of the Hunter School dancers. Even the bull was light on his hooves. The mood and the music changed from bullring to enchanted forest as the Newcastle City Concert Band weaved a spell fit for a wizard. Gandalf the Good Sorcerer goes on a search and destroy mission for a special ring that is holding spell over the hobbits who inhabit the land. He enlists the help of a white charger for his quest. Along the way there are the Elfin Woods and the warring forces of good and evil. The finale is a battle between the hobbits and their enemies the orcs. There is a final public performance at 7:30 tonight.